This resolution is to transfer from the general fund and the police and fire fund into the overtime account to cover overtime due to retirements, illnesses, and injuries, and because the retirement positions were not backfilled, there is available existing salary budget available to cover this overtime. Chief Ward, do you have anything to add?
Nope.
Okay. We are looking for suspension this evening, and I have Mr. Stoughton as my second. Does anybody have any questions regarding this resolution? Seeing none, we will move on. Temporary resolution 97-20, this is a resolution authorizing the law director to negotiate and enter into a contract with the city of Tippington. Followed by 98-20, which is for Reynoldsburg. This is an annual piece that we do every year. Mr. Olin, do you have anything to cover?
No, I may have one more. I have to check my contract with the commissioners or whatever to see. That might be up for negotiation this year, so I may have one more piece to bring in. But
Yeah, I thought there were normally 3.
yeah, we do. Sometimes with the commissioners, we do a multi-year contract, so I've just got to check and see if that's up this year. For some reason, I'm thinking it is, so we may have one more to come through,
Okay.
but yes.
All right. So for 97-20, I have Mrs. Bobbitt as my second and doing 3 readings. And for 98-20, I have Mr. Stoughton as my second, doing 3 readings. Does anybody have any questions about either one of these resolutions? Pretty standard. Okay. Temporary resolution 99-20, this is a resolution scheduling the Lancaster City Council meetings for 2021, which will be upon us very soon. It establishes the calendar of regular meetings coming through the law committee. Mr. Hall.
It's really a pro forma resolution. It takes place every year. Mr. McDaniel is going to be my second.
And 3 readings, correct?
3 readings, please.
Okay. Any questions on that resolution? All right. Temporary resolution 102-20. This is a resolution to authorize the service safety director to enter into an engineering contract amendment for additional construction services with Hull and Associates in the amount of $120,000 for construction inspection services coming through water pollution control. Mr. James.
I would like to yield to Stephen Wellstead of the department to make a couple comments about this.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, so this legislation is, again, as noted, to allow us to enter into a contract with Hull and Associates. We actually already have a contract with them that we utilize throughout the year for inspection and engineering services. It's been a very busy year where they've done a lot of inspection for us, a lot of engineering design. So, and we're going to exhaust those funds. So what we're asking here for is to increase that amount so we can continue to utilize their services.
So I have one question.
Yes.
So back in June, you guys came and asked for $50,000. And now you're coming back and asking for 120. Is that gonna be enough? Or, because 3 months ago, we just passed 50,000 and now you're asking for 120.
I will have to get answers on that. Unfortunately, if I can be very frank, this was put together by Denise, and I was not given all of the background to this. So I don't, she's on vacation, which is why she was not able to be here this week. So I don't have that information available, I'm sorry to say, but I'd be happy to look into that and discuss that with Denise next week and get you an answer via email if you'd like.
That would be great. Yes, Mr. Stoughton.
So I have a couple questions. So what projects are we going to be doing through the end of the year that are going to need these inspection services?
So we have projects currently going on, like the Memorial Drive Culvert project is currently occurring. We've utilized them. We're looking at potentially utilizing them for inspection. I believe on some private development projects that we're short on inspectors, and I know we have some development related to the industrial, new potential industrial user that we're looking at them for design services, so they're involved in that as well. Those off the top of my head are the one I can recall. But again, I know Denise is the one who chiefly handles these, so there may be others that, I hope I'm not mistaken in saying those, there may be others as well that I'm not thinking of at the moment. So again, I'd certainly be happy to provide those details from Denise, so I'm not giving you any bad information.
You're not giving me very much information at all, but I understand it's really not your question to answer, so what I would ask, I assume this is a multi-reading.
It's two
Yes,
readings.
it's 2 readings, so
Yeah,
we'll
so-
have to have the information by next council.
Yeah, so what I would ask, Stephen, if you would ask Denise to kind of give us some specifics and basic, and what fund is this being paid out of, or actually being paid into and then out of?
Another one I don't know, unfortunately, Tom, sorry.
Okay.
So I can answer some of
You
it.
guys know, by any chance?
I can answer some of it.
Please, thank you.
So some of the questions might need to have a follow-up on. One of the things, we do have a lot of subdivision improvements being made right now on the west side of town as well as the east side of town. Traditionally, we have provided some of those inspections for water pollution control in our engineering department, but we are not able to provide that. We are just absolutely swamped with what's going on. So some of this is going a different direction to provide very well experienced, knowledgeable people about a stormwater installation, a sewer installation. We already have somebody on stormwater with our 2 big stormwater projects, but this is for water pollution control. Some of that funding is going to be out of water pollution control. So it's kind of a direction that I've been wanting to go ever since we had our issue up in the River Valley Highlands with some of the water, the water pollution control lines where we had to come back and check out some of the joints that were having infiltration in from the groundwater. And I feel like we need to make more robust inspections, more professional people than just somebody in the office who does it on the side.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I
this
don't-
is a directional thing, and right now, we've been actually having an issue the last month. We're not even able to get people out there to do the inspection. I like to think our contractors are good people and are gonna do the right thing, but to be honest with you, if you don't have an inspector there, you sometimes don't know what you're getting. And so we are there to look at them to do that. We provide that for our LDOT, our paving projects, we have inspectors, so
I
that's
got-
what
yeah,
we're
so no,
talking
I
about.
don't have a.
That's one component of it, not all of it.
Sure, so, but I mean, so here's the thing. We, as a rule, we accept that, hey, we're gonna use these inspection services, as a rule. We kind of blanket for the year and say, hey, it's this number. Now we're going after another larger number. I have no problem with you, if our inspection team, it really isn't their area of expertise to basically know exactly the nooks and crannies to check on a project, and that's certainly not a technical term. I have no problem with using a subject matter expert as an external source. My only other point would be is if we have, hopefully, if we're paying people internally that their primary job is this, then, the question is, do we take everything and move it out of house versus having a mix of in-house and out-of-house? Because if you believe, and if I'm hearing you correctly, I think you believe, and I would concur, that you probably get a better inspection from someone that's truly an SME specific to the type of project that we're doing. And I have no problem with that, and what I'd just really like from Denise is just more detail on what the plan is, and I understand that any dollar that's not spent drops back into whatever fund it came out of. So these are really all stormwater related, water related.
Water pollution, stormwater related, appropriate funds. It's very possible that much of this money will not even be spent this year. It's preparation for something. And so we could maybe have more information here in a couple of weeks. to
No, but
try to go
I
over
think
that.
Holly asked a really good question. I mean, typically it's just been one time a year, and it's rarely we've gone to the bucket a second time, but there's a lot of stuff going on around here.
Right.
I mean, all you gotta do is try to drive your car from point A to point B, and you're gonna run into a project that's gonna push you in a different direction, which tells you
Yes.
that we have a lot of things going on, which is good for our city. So, I have no problem with that. I just want a little more depth in what we're funding. So, Stephen, if you do that, we appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll make sure to shoot her an email with that information and have her get back to you next week.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. King?
One quick question for Paul. I think it might be a matter, you don't have enough resources to keep up with it. And we're in a hiring freeze and things right now. You can't hire people to do it.
Yeah, and to go back to what Mr. Stoughton said, philosophically, I don't know if I want to bring in somebody to do inspections for, which is traditionally during the construction season, when we can just specify it for that area, when we've got better use for our employees year-round. So some of this will be reflected in next year's budget as well. But we need a higher, as everybody knows, we want a good product out there being installed and get our money's worth. So, yes, and we'll find out some other questions, we'll be able to answer that. Legitimate question, I'm not disappointed that you asked the question.
Just make sure you have enough, so you don't have to come back. And if you don't spend it all, then it goes back in the bucket of cleanup. Simple as that. Okay?
Right. Absolutely, thank you.
Any other questions before he leaves the podium? If he attempts to run away from the podium? All right.
Run, Stephen, run.
Thank you.
Second.
I have Mrs. Teener as the second.
Yes.
And 2 readings, so we'll look to have that information for next, council meeting and hopefully be enlightened. Temporary resolution 103-20, this is a resolution to increase the receipts and appropriate from the unencumbered balance, amend the certificate with the county auditor and the LDOT fund and the .45 police and fire levy fund. And this is, sorry.
Should you see council members gesticulating wildly, we got a little fruit fly problem going on up here. So we're all kind of whacking away.
It's like whack-a-mole.
I think if you're Cologne, President Hoover. Or lack thereof.
So temporary resolution 103-20 is so we can actually receive the funds from the NOPEC reimbursement grant for energy savings upgrades, that are outlined as in the resolution. Bottom line is the total is a little over $84,000. Right, Mr. Mayor?
Correct. Several months ago, council approved the acceptance of the NOPEC grant. And NOPEC is Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, which handles our energy aggregation program. And they have a foundation, they make funds available that member municipalities can apply for energy-saving grants. And we were awarded the grant and have ordered the materials. One of the biggest project for this grant is a new boiler for the police department, which you all may recall is subject to many thousands of dollars of repairs every year. The material to do that job was ordered, and we discovered that in accepting the grant, we didn't appropriate actually spending the money. So that's what this is, and we're asking for suspension tonight. Since the material is here, the company is ready to go to work, so we can get that project done before the cold weather hits.
I have a question for the mayor.
Yes, Mr. Stoughton.
How many NOPEC utility customers do we have, or electrical customers do we have?
Something over 7,000.
So effectively, we're getting a return of $11.20
Correct.
per customer back to the city for being
Correct.
NOPEC customers.
That's correct.
Another way, not only are you paying less for electric, you're also getting a rebate back to the city to do these projects. So that's awesome.
Yes.
Look at her.
So I have Mrs. Bobbitt as my second, and then we'll be asking for suspension on this evening. Any other questions on this resolution? Okay. Are there, yes, Mr. Stoughton?
This is for the clerk. Are resolutions 100 and 101 dead, or just kind of a later time?
Well, yes. For tonight, they're dead, and they may come at a later time. So we're leaving the numbering as is for now.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other items to come before finance? Or any other resolutions, I should say? Seeing none, we'll go to departmental updates. Mayor Scheffler, you're gonna be on the docket until we get COVID relief funds.
Or we pass a levy.
Or we pass a levy, yeah.
Or we pass the levy. So you mentioned COVID relief funds. Congress is still dilly-dallying in negotiating between Speaker Pelosi and the White House with what to do about relief funds for the city. There is some belief that something will get done after the election. So with regard to the city, I did post on my Facebook page today, did you forget to file your city income tax return? Because we're down 3,400 returns compared to what was filed by August 31st last year. Congress extended the filing deadline from April 15th to July 15th, and state and city followed that lead with automatic extensions to July 15th. We assume that some people, or maybe a lot of people, just forgot to file those returns when it came to July 15th. So the gentle reminder on the social media post today, and incidentally, the state is having the same issue. They are way down in income tax filings. That leaves us about $1.2 million short in income tax collections from filed returns compared to what our expectation was, obviously, which is having an impact on the budget. We have a hiring freeze in place. The two safety forces departments, police and fire, are authorized for 67. As of today, fire is down to 64, and police is down to 62. They both had an administrative person retire who was not replaced. So we're getting by at the moment, but are looking forward to having those missing returns filed or some relief from Congress at some point to replace some of the revenue that we'll undoubtedly lose because of the COVID virus. Questions?
Just a couple. Thank you. So I missed my apologies, I missed the discussion about temporary resolution 96. So this resolution to cover overtime, is this intended to cover the remainder of the year?
Yes.
At best guess?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so because fire personnel are down, salary expenditures are down, but overtime is up to cover minimum staffing, and so we're just shifting from salaries over to overtime, and yes, it should cover the rest of the year.
Okay. And I appreciate you sending this out, because this is very helpful. You hit all the buckets that we needed to talk about. And then from an income tax perspective, I mean, I'm stunned there's that many returns.
It's over 20% of the returns that we typically get. We have historically received over 16,000 returns each year, so that's over 20% of the returns that we normally get.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and maybe, is Bob here?
Yes.
There he is. So I guess my question is of taxpayers that file a return, how many of them it's really kind of a confirming what their withholding was, and they're really not getting anything back, and they're not paying anything in? So what portion of our, returns are really kind of an in and out?
I don't know if we have that, what percentage of returns actually owe money at the end of the year. Yeah, every city resident is required to file a return, so if they just have a W-2 and the W-2 withholding equals what their tax would be, there's nothing due. But certainly there would have been no reason that those returns wouldn't have been filed really early, because it's pretty simple to do that.
Well, I agree with that. I'm just asking for a number, because if we say that, and again, I know we're not going to answer this today, and maybe it's something you can ask Amy, or do you have a thought on that, Bob?
Yeah, I can tell you that the income tax department has just, their year's been turned upside down. We're essentially having 3 tax days. The typical April 15th, and then we have July 15th, and now there's a lot moving to the October 15th final deadline. With the staffing and things of that nature, the tax commissioner wanted to open all the envelopes, and wherever there's any money, get the money processed, get the money in the account, move forward. The tax returns you're referring to, and I believe they're called the O returns, which means there's nothing owed and nothing to be billed, they will input those later. So they went to the active money first, and then the refunds, because people are entitled to a refund. If they have a refund, in a certain number of days, we must respond to those refunds. And the other stack is a portion of the 3,400, and I believe she has whittled that down pretty good at this point in time. So it's something less than the 34. We really don't know how many actually will owe the taxes, because some are on extension, some, that helps you, but it's
No.
under control, but we just don't know, have an answer.
Let me rephrase it. So
Sure.
I'm not talking about 2020. So what I'm really talking about is historically, how many of those zero returns do we get as a percentage of our total returns?
I'm not in a position to give you that answer.
Yeah.
Our income tax commissioner can.
Yeah, so what I'm suggesting that, I'd just like to kind of know, because if that number is 20%, 30%, whatever it is, then you can extrapolate from that of what's remaining, that portion, that percentage will be, in theory, 0% returns, and the rest of them will have money coming with them, or a refund. Could go either way, right? So that's all. I'm just,
Right. It's been a real bizarre
Oh,
year,
without question.
because there were people filed returns, but they owed money on July 15th, but they didn't remit the check. I think there's a lot of mass confusion. They think they don't owe it till October 15th. Then a lot of the people didn't even file the 15th of July because they forgot, and that's why the mayor has sent back reminders.
yeah, no, I get it.
It's the whole thing, including the state returns, are just,
I just have that finance hat on, Bob, and I just want to,
right.
preserve as much of the cash that we can, and the fact that, we don't have to consider reducing our forces is a great thing.
Right.
It's-
But unfortunately, we really won't know probably until about October 31st, month end. Find out when everything's posted, everything's put away, and
Perfect, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions for the mayor? Or Bob? Okay. Do we have any other departmental updates this evening? Chief Ward.
Thank you. I just want to inform council that our new fire truck just came here last week or the week before. It's not in service yet, but it should be within the week. It'll be stationed on the west side. And just for the benefit of the cameras and people here in the audience who may not know, that was no general fund dollars, that was fire impact money that was spent for that truck. So that now gives us some space between the last truck we purchased, which will position us well for the next few years. Want to invite you Friday, the 18th, this Friday, to the swearing in of Assistant Chief, soon-to-be, Steve Maffin. He's been on the department about 26 years. He's going to do a great job. It's going to be at Engine House 1, so you please, if you can make it, we'd love to have you. And then finally, in 2018, we wrote a grant for SCBA's, and that was about a $171,000 grant, approximately. The time before that was also a grant, so we've received twice now SCBA's on grants.
So what are they, Chief?
It's our air packs. It's our air
You
packs.
carry on your back.
Right, for us to go in the fire. So that's a big asset that we don't have to pay out of general fund. It's in service. Lieutenant Jeremy Craner put those in service last week, so we're excited about that. Very nice. So it should add to the safety of the firefighters.
What was the value of that grant?
About $171,000.
That's fantastic.
So that's all.
Chief, do you, any chance, I think in the past, especially when we got the last medic maybe, you brought it down. Any chance we can get the truck down here at our next meeting? And
Yes, we had
maybe play
intended
with it?
on doing that tonight, but it didn't work out. But yes, we'll try to get it down here the next meeting.
Yeah, maybe between finance and council.
Yes, that's
can
what
go
we were
out.
hoping to
That's
do.
great. And then quickly, what time is the thing on Friday?
2 p.m.
Thank you.
Mayor.
The chief mentioned the Fire Impact Fund. I would just like to elaborate for everyone exactly what that is. As he said, no tax money was used to purchase the fire truck. The city, since 2005, has had the Fire Impact Fund. Every developer who builds a single-family home or a multifamily residential development pays into the Fire Impact Fund. The fee is actually $2,223 per unit. So if a developer builds a house, when he gets his building permit, he pays 22, 23 into the fire impact fund. If there's a 100-unit apartment development, each of the 100 units is assessed $2,223, or for a 100 unit would be $222,233. And that's paid with the building permit, and that money is restricted to spending for fire equipment or fire facilities. It can't be used for anything else or for maintenance on firehouses.
Thank you. So just for clarity purposes, how much, and it's been, I think, somewhat widely publicized on social media, but how much was the engine?
$570,000. To give you an idea, what the second one we purchased was in 2013. I think it was $454,000, and the Councilman Matlin could probably affirm that. It's pretty close. So it goes up quite a lot every year.
So $570,000, and how much did the taxpayer pay for that?
Nothing.
Thank you.
Zero.
Thank you very much.
And the first one as well, except for the matching of 10%. So
Right.
that first grant was $270,000, I believe. So we've done very well with grants.
Yes, you have. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Ward. Are there any other departmental updates? Okay, seeing none, I'll turn it over to President Wolf immediately, but since I stole his thunder on one of the resolutions, he might not have anything.
I have just a couple of things for the purpose of what's going to happen tonight. One, we do have a couple of awards that we are handing out during the regular meeting of City Council, and as you can see, for those of you who maybe can't see on TV or online, we are working to comply with all of the regulations to ensure the health and safety from a COVID-19 standpoint. And so it may be that we have to ask a couple of audience members if they could relocate themselves just for the beginning portion of council so that we can give these awards out. I believe that the awardees will then be leaving, and you'll have the opportunity, if you're here, to return back in, but we can't go over the number permitted, and that number is the number of chairs you see. So if at the break we need to transition a couple people, we hope that you would be willing to do that for us, understanding that you will get back in when the award set time is finished. The other thing I'll just mention very quickly is that, as Councilman Stoughton mentioned, 100 and 101 have been pulled for now. The numbers will remain in case those do come back, and so you'll see that skipped in the most recent version of the agenda, which is printed out up there on the table. Even the most recent emailed one, I think, still has it in there. And so just so you know, we'll be skipping 100 and 101 on purpose tonight as we go forward. The other thing I just wanted to ask quickly is we've had some tabled legislation here for a while, and 1420 will remain until after the election, but 4520 and 7020, either Ms. Tina or Mr. Schoonover, is there any action or
Not yet,
activity on
no.
these?
No, they're still waiting with, of course, with Olive Dale.
Okay.
And they are kind of transitioning slowly, I think, back into that, right, Paul? They're kind of transitioning into Olive
Yes.
Dale a little bit. So hopefully we'll be able to get that, off and voted on.
Great, yeah, and it's not a problem. I was just wondering if there was anything new on that. And what about Mr. Schoonover, the 7020, anything new there?
I have not been advised of any change in the super secret negotiations of the whole thing, so.
Very good. Okay. The only other thing I'll ask then is that members of council between finance and council, if you have legislation that's passing tonight, in order to not have a big group of people up here after the meeting, if you'll sign your legislation between the meetings, the clerk would certainly appreciate that. With that, I'll return back to the chairperson.
Thank you. And I am sorry. I didn't put that on that.
Cracking me up.
Are there any other items for finance? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:30.
The regular meeting of Lancaster City Council will begin at 6:35.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
Swing into the Carriage Company and check out our sweet deals.
If you're looking for the best selection of clean, quality used vehicles, look no further than the Carriage Company. You'll feel secure with your purchase, knowing all vehicles undergo an extensive safety and service check prior to the sale. And all vehicles can be viewed online at carriagecompany.com. The Carriage Company, located at 1031 North Memorial Drive in Lancaster.
Sweet!
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of Lancaster City Council. Please join me in a word of prayer. Father, we are thankful for this day and your many blessings. While we never want to fail to give you praise for all that you're doing, we also pause and submit that we need you. We need you this evening and ask that you would lead, guide, and direct us as we move forward with the business set before us tonight. May you continue to be with all of our leaders at the national, state, and local levels. And Father, may you continue to be with our first responders and military men and women who are fighting to preserve our freedom all around the world. We ask that you would be with us tonight in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen. I hereby call this meeting of Lancaster City Council to order. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Please call the roll. In the midst of swatting bugs up here still, yes. It's terrible.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Here.
Mrs. Downhour.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. James.
Here.
Mr. Matlin.
Here.
Mr. McDaniel.
Here.
Mr. Schoonover.
Here.
Mr. Stoughton.
Here.
And Mrs. Teener.
Here.
Let the record reflect that 9 of 9 members of Lancaster City Council are in attendance this evening. Reading and disposing of the journal.
I'd like to present the regular meeting minutes dated August 24th, 2020.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the journal. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports of city officials.
There are two. Email dated September 14th, 2020 regarding revised packets submitted by Mrs. Downhour, and an email dated September 14th, 2020 regarding the Finance Committee agenda submitted by Mrs. Downhour.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of city officials. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any communications?
There are none to be presented.
Tonight we have several special presentations and awards, and I'm not sure, am I turning it over to the mayor? Mayor Scheffler, we will ask you to take it away here tonight to honor our guests.
Thank you, President Uhl. So we, at the, Linda Berge, Executive Director of our Community Development Department, has, as part of her duties and working all around the city, come up with a new program called the Caring Citizen Award. And we're doing this in conjunction with the United Way Community Cares Day, or in this month because of the COVID Community Care Days, which last all through the month of September. So 3 council people have nominated individuals from their wards for this special recognition. And we have a certificate up here, and I believe another little token for them. And so I'm going to ask the city council people one at a time to talk about their award winner and why they were nominated. And then if that person or persons could come up and get their award, we'll do it from right here. So Mrs. Teener, we'll start with you.
This is Ed Klum.
Near the microphone.
Oh, we're gonna do that. Come on over here. Mr. Klum had in 1990 started Foundation Dinners on the west side, and you are a west side boy.
Yes, I
You've
am.
lived there how many years?
88.
Still there?
And I was born just a half a block up the street from where
Okay.
Foundation Dinners is.
And in 1994, you started the shelter,
Foundation Shelter.
the Foundation Shelters. So, and I'd like to present this to you. Thank you for everything, and here's your gift certificate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Downhour, you're next.
This is Debbie Probasco, and a lot of you on council know Debbie. I nominated her because she does such great work for the Fifth Ward down on the south end. We work together on the traffic light.
Yes, we did.
And we have community watch meetings. And tell everybody what the work that you've done with the police alumni.
The Citizens Police Academy,
Yes.
there's Shop with the Cop, Kids and Cops Day, Halloween, ride-alongs with the officers. There's so many, I can't
There's
think of
so
all
many
of them.
things, yes.
Yeah.
Just,
There's always
just a
something going
number.
on.
Yeah. So she has done a lot of work. She continues to do a lot of work. She is a great advocate for the citizens of the South End in the Fifth Ward, and this is very much deserved.
Thank you so much.
And Mr. James.
I indeed have the privilege of presenting a Caring Citizen Award tonight to Carol and Ed Donham. And it was a few weeks ago that I received an email from a young lady that actually lives next door to them. And the way she described all the things that this young couple does for her and for a whole bunch of other people in the Wacker edition was pretty unbelievable. So Saturday, I had indeed the privilege of going and meeting with these one young lady and one young man. And they were completely surprised by this. All the things that they did out of the kindness of their heart, expecting nothing in return, and they really deserve this Caring Citizen Award. And I will get them a gift card for the Red Lobster, but I don't have it with me tonight. But we'll make sure that happens. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all very much, and congratulations to each one of you, to the Donhams. Thank you for what you do in your community. To Ms. Probasco, I'm a proud alum of the Lancaster Citizens Police Academy, and while I don't have as much time as I'd like to be actively involved like you are, I appreciate all that you do for our officers and for the community. And to Mr. Klum, congratulations to you. I've served dinners in your foundation, and it's always a great joy to go and serve in that way. You have had a significant impact on the people of Lancaster and Fairfield County, and we certainly appreciate you and each of you. Let's show them our appreciation once again for all that they do. Thank you all very much. We are not going to subject you to having to stay for the entire council meeting if you do not want to. We know there were people who transitioned out to open up some seats, so we'll take just a moment here to, if you would like to at this time, take your leave, go ahead and let you do that, and let the others transition in before we get to voter and taxpayer time. Thank you again for being here tonight.
So I had to took class and too much of who?
He's already told me.
Yeah, 75, yeah, that's kind of what I would have thought.
Shoo them that way. Don't shoo them, squash them.
Well, we have. I've done that.
I missed the last
All
one.
right, it looks like everyone has made it back in. I want to say thank you to each of you once again for stepping out for a few moments to allow those citizens to receive their awards. We're going to continue on with the meeting at this time. Are there any petitions or memorials this evening?
There are none to be presented.
During this time at our meeting, we set time aside for the voters and taxpayers of the city of Lancaster to address members of council on any item or issue that they would like. If you'd like to address Lancaster City Council tonight, we ask that you would come forward to the podium, sign in with your name and address on the clipboard, and then state the same for the record. Please note that while we may choose to do so at a later time during our meeting, members of City Council will not respond to you during this particular time. In addition, in accordance with the rules of council, we ask that you would keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. With that, is there anyone who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? Yes, sir. You can sign in afterward if you don't mind. Just go ahead and state your name and address, and then you can begin.
I've signed in. My name is William Good. I live at 3137 Meister Road, Lancaster, Ohio. I pay taxes to the city through the school. We are in the school district, and I also have property taxes through rental property here in town.
Thank you, sir.
So in March of 2019, well before the George Floyd incident that has provoked nationwide protests, I spoke to this council to warn this community that we have hate groups infiltrating our community. I left the council with suggestions for preventing these groups from infiltrating Lancaster, and since none of those recommendations were really acted on, I come here to warn you again and point out the presence of these hate groups. I'd like to start with the Confederate flag. The Confederate flag is not part of Lancaster's heritage. To wave a Confederate flag in front of the Sherman statue and less than a block from the Sherman House is nothing less than an insult to Lancaster's heritage. To wave a Confederate flag in response to our country's current social justice movement can be considered nothing less than a signal to affirm your racist bigotry. Worse, when you impose the Confederate flag onto the American flag, you are desecrating the American flag. Desecrating the American flag with Confederate symbolism does not make you a patriot. It makes you anti-American. As a veteran, I find self-proclaimed patriots that desecrate the American flag with Confederate symbolism in the name of racism and bigotry to be revolting and disgusting. These patriots should be condemned by our community and elected officials, not embraced by them. According to the Department of Homeland Security, white supremacists will remain the most persistent and lethal threat in the United States through the year 2021. On September 4th, the Proud Boys organization from Columbus was invited to our community. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Proud Boys are self-described Western chauvinists. Their disavowals of bigotry are belied by their actions. Rank and file Proud Boys leaders regularly spout white nationalist memes and maintain affiliation with known extremists. They are known for anti-Muslim and misogynistic rhetoric. Proud Boys have appeared alongside other hate groups at extremist gatherings like Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. The Proud Boys are associated with Patriot Front. The Patriot Front is an American white supremacist, neo-Nazi, neo-fascist group which utilizes imagery of patriotism, liberty, and other widely accepted American values to promote its ideology. The Patriot Front is active in Columbus and in Lancaster, as their propaganda materials have been found in Lancaster and Columbus. As recently as last week, a Patriot Front sticker was found by a citizen and removed from a pole at Main and Memorial Drive. Proud Boys were also present at rallies attended by Anti-Communist Action, a splinter group of the Adam Waffen Division, a neo-Nazi terror group, and Boogaloo Boys, accelerationist group intent on starting a race war. Let's look at some of the actions and associates of the Columbus Proud Boys and their leader, Dan Chiamachella. During the response to the COVID pandemic, there were open rallies attended by Proud Boys. At the end of one of the rallies, the Proud Boys posed for a picture, many displaying a white power hand symbol. These rallies were also attended by individuals displaying anti-Semitic signs, presumably directed at Dr. Amy Acton. Some of those same Proud Boys later carried out terror campaign by showing up at Dr. Acton's home. More recently, at a rally organized by Dan Chiamicella, the Proud Boy leader in Columbus, Proud Boys showed up to support racism denial while simultaneously supporting racism and violence. Many of the statements that I've made here have been supported by articles of evidence. I'd like to point out anti-Semitic signs carried by Proud Boys and Proud Boys members at Dr. Amy Acton's house, where they protested her home, and other Proud Boys at rallies, along with Proud Boys denying the existence of racism in Columbus at a rally organized by Dan Chiamicella. And finally, this last one is the Proud Boy security detail in Columbus. He is wearing a vest that has these letters down here, the patch RWGS.
Sir, your time has expired. Thank you.
That would be Right Wing Death Squad.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Council. My name is Terry Dorian Baum. Many of you know me already. Business address is 123 South Broad Street, Suite 314 in Lancaster. I've already addressed some of these issues with the mayor, as well as the city safety director and the chief of police, so I'm encouraged in many ways by some of the issues this council and some of the city has addressed when it comes to race and race relations here in town. I also have a fairly constant working relationship with the legal community, part of which is represented here, and I'm encouraged by much of what they've done. However, in viewing the last meeting here, I think it's very important to address specific comments made by a particular council person, specifically Becky Tiener. So I'm going to direct these mostly at you, although I think many people here need to hear this because I've seen, as I've lived here for the last decade, a consistent failure to recognize what goes on in this town, the kind of racism that persists here, and the behaviors and the general attitudes of the people in power on the whole. And I'm not trying to say that people here are generally outwardly racist or even knowledgeable that they're racist. However, I am saying there's a lot of covert racism, and if you talk to people of color, of which there are not many, that is a consistently held belief by many of them. Specifically, two comments made by Becky Tiener, because she really didn't speak very long, but it was that A, all lives matter, and B, that she doesn't believe in this, quote, white privilege crap. Now, to be so dismissive is itself, at best, dangerously ignorant. And I'm going to try and disabuse you of that notion at this time. I think part of what happened there was a bit performative, but still. What I see here oftentimes, and again, this is some things that I've already talked to the mayor about, but there's a lot of white fragility here that takes place, and a lot of people who are unwilling to accept the issues or the things that have surrounded this town historically. In addition, that white fragility not only means that you have a trouble understanding what's going on, but also you take personal offense that somehow your life or the things you've accomplished in life are diminished by your whiteness. And that's not the case. All white privilege is understanding that by being white, you have a certain advantage. Now I'm going to give you an example to make this a little bit easier for you, because it appears that most people here, again, as soon as you're told that you're white and that whiteness is a privilege, automatically get defensive. Let's say you have a billionaire and their child is born either blind or without a limb. Now that person they grew up with extreme privilege. They grew up in a place that none of us could probably understand, but clearly any person would say that that person is disadvantaged, either by having no sight or no limb. This is pretty easy, and if you're going to try to deny their disadvantage, it would be ridiculous. You'd be laughed out. This is the same exact thing that white privilege is. White privilege doesn't mean that as a white person you haven't had to struggle. It doesn't mean that you haven't had difficulties in your life. What it means is that your skin color is not one of them. So you may have a rich black person or brown person, and their child may have all of the benefits of wealth and all of the benefits that wealth gives you, but they are still black no matter what happens. And when you say something like all lives matter, I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say, in the medical profession, I see someone who comes in and I don't treat them differently based on their skin color. And that's fantastic if it's true. But saying the words all lives matter is obvious. Because the phrase Black Lives Matter doesn't mean Black Lives Matter more. It doesn't mean Black Lives Matter greater than others or only matter. What it means is Black Lives Matter too, T-O-O, also as well. And when you say the words all lives matter, what that means is someone's saying to you, Black Lives Matter too, and you're saying your experience doesn't matter because all lives matter. And that is obscene and upsetting to anybody with a conscience. It would be the same as if someone came to your child's funeral and went up to you and said, you know, all children matter. I don't even know what we're doing here. All children are going to die eventually. Why do we even care? Well, you know what? Your child matters more that day. And right now, all around the country, you're seeing, and internationally, frankly, you're seeing a group of historically marginalized people who are saying, please listen to our experience. And saying the words all lives matter says your experience doesn't matter. And this is the same for male privilege, same for straight privilege. It'd be the same as if I went to you and said, I've had struggles too, just because you're a woman, it doesn't matter. You're being a female and earning 82 cents the male dollar, or having to worry about physical limitations or less strength or something of that nature. All of that means that you have to understand and appreciate everything that's going on in the Black Lives Matter movement. Not just saying, well, yes, all lives matter, of course.
Mr. Bond, your time has expired. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here.
Sir.
Is there anyone else who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Stephanie Renner, and I live at 527 Goodwin Avenue here in Lancaster. I pay taxes here, and I vote here. Good evening. I'm here tonight speaking as a chairperson for the local activist group, The Instigators. I'm going to echo the sentiments of Leah Good's statement from last council meeting concerning the notion of proactivity and the efficacy of proactivity when concerning hate groups, racial bias, and racial sensitivity in our community. At the last council meeting, my ward representative, Councilperson Becky Teener, shared an impassioned revocation of the concept of white privilege as a theory of social justice. As an expert in women and gender study theories, it was troubling to hear her characterization of the concept. The intersectionality of Black liberation and women's liberation is pinnacled on the historical inequities shared by marginalized people through the evolution of the United States justice system. To say Councilperson Teener's posture to white privilege was disappointing would be an understatement. Sadly, it is indicative to the reproach of rural America to issues of racial, social, and economic injustices. So, for the sake of establishing an objective framework, the Instigators provided the City Council members a copy of a piece from Tolerance.org entitled, "What is White Privilege?" This is the same piece we have read for 11 weeks at our downtown demonstrations. We hope that your copy made its way to you, and if it didn't, please feel free to reach out to us. We would love to provide you another copy or expound on any questions or concerns that you might have. Moving forward requires us to have conversations about race at a fundamental level. Much of the work that Lancaster and Fairfield County has left to do with regard to racial justice is pinnacled on our ability as predominantly white communities to understand the disposition of people of color and material social realities that are often left unaddressed. Our grievance today is not rooted in a singular moment. Councilperson Teener not only rebuked the idea of white privilege with a superficial understanding of the concept, she continued to escalate her problematic position into action. Last meeting, Chief Pilar said, "If you really want to support us," he was referring to the police, "we would prefer you not go down there on Wednesday. 2 days later, front and center on what was dubbed the Patriot side, Councilperson Teener stood in defiance of Chief Pillar's recommendation, as well as the implicit guidance of the rest of the city government. We want to be clear as an organization. We do not demand or wish for any member of city leadership to validate our cause. We respect the value of impartiality of elected officials serving diverse populations. That night, Councilperson Teener breached that trust and made a partisan stance on this decisive issue. Then, 1 week later, on Friday, September 4th, she returned downtown, this time standing with outside actors representing a neo-fascist fraternity called Proud Boys. Designated a hate group by the ADL and the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Proud Boys are a breeding ground for extremist populism and bigoted ideologies. The leader of the Proud Boy chapter, Dan Simicella, has led multiple marches at the Columbus State House that united his fraternity with other extremist groups like the Neo-Nazi Patriot Front, anti-government radicals called Boogaloo Boys, and other extremist paramilitary groups like the Three Percenters and the Ohio Patriots. What started as reactionary musings led to the tacit support of neo-fascism and extremism in our community. This tacit support from a sitting city council member emboldens the worst of our opposition to perpetuate lies, threats, and propaganda that further complicates the difficult work of racial justice in our community. As was mentioned in Mrs. Good's statement at the last council meeting, bigotry and racism are not good for business. And what's more, bigotry and racism are not good for people. Communities thrive on diversity, inclusivity, and those attributes take trust and respect to thrive. We appreciate the good faith attempts by Mayor Scheffler, Chief Pillar, and other leaders in the city and business community to work towards meeting this cultural moment. But Lancaster still has much more work to do, and it begins with proactivity and holding defectors accountable when they miss the mark. In this moment, we interpret accountability as a public statement from the city's leadership about proactivity and our role as engaged citizens to stand against and denounce hate groups, bigotry, and all forms of violent rhetoric. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. Is there anyone else who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? Yes, sir.
Hello. Excuse me. My name is Jamie Brown. I live at 527 Goodwin Avenue. Some might recognize me from my work with the local activist group, The Instigators, but I want to be clear that my statement tonight is a view of myself and not of the group. This is a personal grievance I'm making with the disparaging statements Councilperson Teener made at the last city council meeting. Quote, "I know this is probably going to burn me, but I don't really care," end quote. That was the preface to Councilperson Teener's statement in regard to white privilege as a social justice concept. I agree with the instigator's statement Stephanie just shared, and I took offense to the Councilperson Teener's reductive posture on the concept of white privilege and the role it plays in perpetuating inequities in our society. What bothered me more was her insinuations about economic mobility, emphasizing herself as a single mother who, quote, "never took a stick of welfare," end quote. Several of my friends and colleagues were put off by the inflammatory posture of her statement and the inferred demonization of welfare programs. Because of the stigma and taboo surrounding poverty, especially in rural areas like Lancaster, statements like Councilperson Teener's are often left unscrutinized. But I was raised in extreme poverty situations, and I took personal offense to the cavalier nature and posture of Councilperson Teener's resolve last council meeting. I took many sticks of welfare as a child. Nearly 50% of all sticks of welfare are children recipients. The other 50% of sticks of welfare are given to working class people. 80% of all working class people who take sticks of welfare work up until they receive those sticks of welfare or go on to work after receiving sticks of welfare. Modern society is built on compassion and empathy, which cultivates sticks of welfare to mitigate social failures and economic inequities. As a global community, humanity overwhelmingly agrees to the inalienable rights of survival, access to food, housing, and healthcare. These compassionate and lofty goals have, do, and will continue to require plenty sticks of welfare. Councilperson Teener, I don't know you, and I can only imagine you've made it this far because of your hard work, discipline, and commitment to your community. I am not here to speak against your character. Nonetheless, I found your position to be quite disturbing. The most disturbing part of your statement at the last council meeting was your seeming awareness of the implications of the things you said. Again, quote, "I know this is probably going to burn me, but I don't really care," end quote. I believe that you believe your intentions are good. As a Christian, I believe the innate trajectory of humanity is good. I believe everyone in this room has good intentions. But they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Our city is plagued with poverty, addiction, and domestic abuse. Some of Lancaster's citizens are living in hell right now outside those doors. The path out of hell for many of them will mean a few walking sticks of welfare to help carry that load. I am a first-generation high school graduate. I'm also a first-generation college student and a survivor of poverty. Both my parents were raised in neglectful and abusive households, which led them to be high school dropouts. And they both started working full-time jobs when they were 17 years old. My dad, consistent with known risk factors as being a child of extreme poverty, suffers from early onset heart disease, and he recently contracted COVID-19. He's fortunate enough to have made it through the other side of that disease, but he is now currently battling late-stage heart failure. My dad is feeling optimistic and cared for and comfortable. I say all of this because without sticks of welfare, none of that would have been possible. And it's through my experiences and my parents' experiences that I can say with confidence that had I been black, had my parents had been black, my circumstances, my parents' circumstances would have been much different. That's white privilege. It's real whether you take sticks of welfare or not. Thank you for your time, council.
Thank you for being here. Is there anybody else who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Amy Schleich, and I live at 763 Lanrigo Boulevard. I am a taxpayer, and I have filed my taxes. I paid attention.
Thank you.
So I'm here to share and show support. We tell our children, and my child is here for that purpose, if you see something, you say something. And so what I have seen is the drowning out of voices downtown, and I do appreciate the mayor and the police and the action that they took to make sure that they weren't drowned out. But I also see an atmosphere of intolerance and intimidation. I see it in the hate mail that I receive for signs that I put out on my personal property, and some of this hate mail is probably coming from the groups that you've heard of. And so although I report it to the police, I know that there's nothing they can do about it. But if I see something, I say something. Because intimidation is meant to silence. And when you silence people, then they become invisible. I'm not invisible. I am here, and you need to hear me. You need to hear them.
Thank you for being here this evening, ma'am. Is there anybody else who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? Ma'am, just to clarify, you signed in earlier, right?
I did not.
No, I'm sorry, behind you. Yes, okay, thank you.
I didn't, I'm about to sign.
Yeah, you can sign afterward. You can just go ahead and start and
Okay.
then sign after. Thank you.
My name is Chris Shire. I've lived in Lancaster for 25 years. I'm a taxpayer, and I'm a business owner. My business is Rabbit and Rocket on Main Street, 2 blocks from where people are walking past my storefront with AK-47s and AR-15s on peaceful, sunlit sunset nights. I'm furious about this on a number of levels, but mostly because a member of this council decided that it was good to support people who openly carry semi-automatic weapons in our city on what is ostensibly our town square. It's not okay. If we do not stop somehow this escalation, something is going to happen that we will all regret for not having done anything. I don't book Wednesday night classes anymore, not because the instigators did anything wrong. I didn't even know that they were still up there doing their thing during the entire 2 months before we started to get the opposition in town with their guns. But now that people see the guns, and it's all over social media, and there's video showing a member of council walking shoulder to shoulder and spending time with these folks, the message is clear. My other work, my other company is a marketing company. Do you know what the marketing message is now for Lancaster? We welcome supremacists. We welcome guns on our town square. That is not a sustainable model for revitalizing your downtown, our downtown. I don't know what we can do about regulating the open carry of semi-automatic weapons on Main Street, Lancaster, Ohio, but I really hope that we think deeply about what our endorsement of that behavior says to the world at large. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Is there anybody else who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening?
Sign in.
Yes, thank you for signing. Thank you. Okay, well, thank each of you for being here this evening.
I'd like to make a motion to go out of the order of business.
We have a motion to go outside of the regular order of business. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. I suspect Ms. Tiener has made a motion to go outside of the regular order of business so that she can now, versus at the end of our meeting, which would be the regular time, address some of the comments that were directed at her tonight. Ms. Tiener, you have the floor.
Yes, well, I want everybody to know, I am not a white supremacist. I do not own a Confederate flag. I don't even own a gun. Because years ago, actually, one reason why I went downtown was to see what was going on. And I talked to people and told them, I stood up at the fence and I talked, and people could verify this. I told people, you know what, stop yelling across the street. It's not doing any good. This is what's going on. Our businesses are shut down or not a lot of people are going. I did talk, there was one guy that was screaming on a megaphone. Actually, the group made him leave because he was yelling some vulgar things across the street, actually at the other side, and the group made him leave, not the police. It wasn't the people across the street, it was the group, because I said, what he's yelling is not right. This is not constructive. I went the Friday, I didn't even know the Proud Boys were there. I don't even know what they were, but I took a donation of toothpaste and wipes for people for the homeless. And I went to see what's going on. Other council people know I do this type of thing. This is not in the ordinary for me to go and see what's going on. Yesterday there was an incident. I had to work all night last night. I spent 2 hours in my ward because somebody had pulled a knife on one of my residents, making sure they were taken care of. Then I went to work all night. This is what I do. Anybody can vouch for me about this type of stuff. The other thing about guns, I'll tell you why I'm scared of guns. And I think people should be allowed to own them to defend themselves. But there was an incident, actually, talk about discrimination, happened to me in this town back in the 90s when I was married to a Lancaster firefighter who was protected by the city. Discrimination isn't always race, okay? I was married to a firefighter who took a loaded handgun into the Fairview. The city totally defended him. He should have lost his job. He should have went to prison. I don't even like guns. Both my brothers are Columbus police officers. We were even brought up with guns. I wasn't scared of them at the time until that happened in the 90s. So no, I'm not supporting either side. I just think that I'm trying to watch what's going on. And if anybody wants to verify this about me, that I do go out and look at things when people are like, man, you better watch out because you're going to get hurt. So if you people think that, and I think I saw somebody the other night maybe that's in this room right now, that even though the instigators quote unquote aren't going, I've seen this individual 2 days after there was a speech made and then last Wednesday. And they had a shirt that said something to the effect of, something about Trump, impeaching Trump, and they used the F word on the shirt. And that person, I believe, is sitting in this room right now, and even though the instigators aren't showing up. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Teener. Is there anyone else who would like to address any of the comments that we heard tonight? Yes, Mr. Mallon.
It's a difficult situation, and about the guns, I agree with the guns. I don't see the purpose to an open carry. I don't see the purpose to, however, our federal government and our Constitution allows these rights, and when we give the authority or the right to a peaceful group that has good intentions to demonstrate it, which they have, we're done, and they do a very good job of it. Unfortunately, there's people that also want to use those rights for bad things, and I think I agree with pretty much everything everybody said. As far as downtown, this past week I've gotten, because I tend to go to a lot of the restaurants downtown and along Main Street, I know the owners, and I get phone calls from the owners who are so upset about this because the business they're losing. I did see Ms. Teener downtown Wednesday night, and I was down there because there was a plea from our mayor at a meeting earlier about how much business the downtown owners are losing. And so the wife and I went downtown, and there was something going on up by the square, but we went to dinner, then we went to a different restaurant downtown after that, and I saw Ms. Teener walking her dog. And for me, it wasn't to see what was going on, it was to try to support the businesses that are losing. You know, COVID-19 has made them almost lose their business, but to add this on top, it's even worse. And one of the other phone calls I got was from a business further out East Main Street, even on Wednesday nights, that he's losing business because of what's going on. So I don't have a fix for this, but I will tell you, I completely support the idea of, you know, there's no reason to hate anybody. Just because somebody has a different opinion than you doesn't mean that you should hate them. It means maybe you should listen to them. And I think that's probably what's not happening with the people that don't come to this meeting. I mean, I'm sure it's happening with you, with all of you. The people that don't come here from out of town, they don't want to listen. They merely want to yell and scream and call you things because you don't agree with their position. So I get it. The situation for the city legally is really difficult. And I think the mayor will agree with that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mallon. Anyone else like to? Yes, Mr. Schoonover. Oh, I see hands everywhere. We'll get over there in a second. Mr. Schoonover.
I just want to take a minute to vouch for Becky and what she said in terms of, I've known her since way before I was on council, and she would always call with animal issues and weird times of night, like, what are you doing at 11:30 at night? Why are you calling me about a stray cat? She's going to stick her nose on both sides of whatever issue, whether that's, you know, annoying to some or depending on what time you get a phone call. But I just wanted to vouch for the fact that she's all over the place, driving through alleys. She attends, we're all on 3 committees on council, so we attend these meetings, we have our committee meetings. I will say a lot of the committees that I'm on that Becky isn't on, she's at those meetings trying to find out what's going on. So I'm just vouching for the fact that she does put forth a lot of effort, and you'll see her in situations that you're like, why are you here? But she spends a lot of time trying to get to know people, trying to get to know what she's dealing with, and she does have pretty strong opinions, and I'm okay with that because we kind of all need to hear both sides. So I appreciate everybody coming and speaking to that, but again, just vouching for the fact that you might see her on one side of the street one day, you might see her on the other side of the street the other day. So you got to keep that in mind. She does look at both sides of the fence.
Thank you, Mr. Schoonover. Anybody else? Ms. Bobbitt.
First off, I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. Every one of you that came to the podium, I can tell, we can tell how passionate you are. I do not want my city to become a city with people taking guns out in the street. I saw the pictures. It looks absolutely terrible. You talk about marketing. I mean, I went out to YouTube. I see what we can see on YouTube. After I get done speaking, I'd like Randall, to talk more. I mean, I didn't vote for open guns in Ohio, but there was sure a lot of people that voted for them. As the councilman down here says, it's the law. Maybe Randall can tell us, if there is anything that we can do about, guns in the downtown. Now back to Becky. Maybe I didn't agree with everything that she said a couple weeks ago, but Becky told me that she was going downtown. She called me on the phone and said, Melody, I'm going down there and I'm talking to those people. I told her, be careful, and she says, I go and I talk to them, I'm trying to get them to calm down. So maybe this is a good invitation. She's here this evening. Talk with Becky, see what she was trying to accomplish that evening or a couple evenings. She's a go-getter. She talks to everybody in her ward, and she does take care of her ward. So I know we all can get, maybe I haven't always liked her. We've had some personality conflicts, but talk about things and work through them, and you can see maybe what she's trying to do. And I know a lot of you maybe are from the 6th Ward, so talk with her. But the main thing is for us all to work together to get our downtown to what it should be, and what, I don't think there's one of us in this room that likes someone carrying that. I mean, I've got grandkids. I can't tell you the last time I walked on the sidewalk in downtown Lancaster. But thank you all for being here this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Bobbitt. Anyone else? Mr. James, and then we'll go to Mr. Stoughton.
I really appreciate everybody coming here tonight. I'm Tom James, and I'm actually the council person, first-year council person for the 2nd Ward. And when I first put my name in for this, my wife said, "Are you nuts?" And my response was, "I think I can make a difference." But Becky is on one of my committees, and she works nights at a hospital in Columbus, and she breaks her neck to get down to the meetings. Could she have used some different words? Do I agree with the white privilege comment? Probably not, because the only thing I can share with you, I've been in business for many, many years, and I'm retired now, or trying to be, let's put it that way. And the business I was in was called industrial cleaning. And we were on a big project in southern Indiana, and we stayed at a motel in a town north of that, and we were in a restaurant with 2 of my best supervisors who were not Native American, were black Americans. And as we're sitting there discussing the project for the following day, a group of white men, not so nice white men at another table, started really making some nasty remarks, to which I was pretty much not listening at all. And the elder gentleman of my supervisor, the elder supervisor, he said, "We have to leave." And I looked at him and said, "Well, what's wrong? We're not done eating yet." He said, "We have to leave." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Those guys are going to cause trouble, and the only ones that are going to end up in jail is us." I said, "We're not leaving." He said, "You don't understand. We have to leave." So we actually vacated that town. I won't mention the name of the town, but it's heavily toward the white supremacists. And the only thing that's going to change in this doggone country is not carrying automatic weapons around. You've got a right to own them. I'm okay with that. But you don't have a right to use them to intimidate people. And I've got a real issue with that. I'm very much Second Amendment. You got a right to own it. Although a few years ago in the 1990s, those were banned, and all of a sudden that ban sort of went away because of some heavy-duty lobbying that certain groups are making. The point I'm trying to make, and I don't mean to get emotional about it, until we start talking to one another, getting to know one another, and I would encourage you to do that with Miss Becky, nothing's going to change. If we all stay polarized, nothing will change. And my father-in-law was on the 3rd wave at Omaha Beach in Normandy. He survived it until he got to St. Lo, where he was hit in the hand with a piece of shrapnel. He fought against that kind of Nazi ideology, and to this day, I'm going to do the same thing. So I appreciate all of you being here tonight. Sorry that I had to go on about that, but That's something I just needed to share.
Thank you, Mr. James. I'd like to yield the floor to Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not, not going to go into that kind of detail, but for the folks that spoke this evening, I really want to thank you. You know, most of you had a very respectful tone. I appreciate that. You had some very well articulated points. And, you know, the thing you brought to the podium tonight and brought to our council was, you know, a different perspective, and you always have an opportunity to learn. So I really appreciate your coming tonight. Knowing Becky as I do, I've got to believe part of her is remiss with her position 2 weeks ago. But I will tell you, we haven't always agreed either. So, you know, the big shocker there. However, I do want to share a couple things about her, because if I don't share them with you, you know, and they're very similar to what Corey said, very similar to what Mel said. You know, she cares about the city and every little piece and part of it. You will find her doing things not because she thinks it'll garner her a vote or garner her anything. It'll garner her self-satisfaction that she fixed something. I had the good fortune or the misfortune of getting an opportunity to ride with her for about 2 hours in her ward in a car one Sunday afternoon, and I'm joking, and to see the passion she had for everything in that ward that had an opportunity to get better. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. I just want to share that with you, the passion that she has for this city. And then finally, you may or may not know, my wife is the executive director of the Lighthouse here in Lancaster, Ohio, and that is certainly the stories and real life situations that come out of there are pretty grim, a lot. And you know, this is, you know, Becky bringing me things to City Council, bringing things by to my wife for the folks that are in the you know, in the shelter, being protected from a bad situation. So I want you to understand that, you know, while she has strong opinions, she also has a big heart. So I just want to share that with you. And with that, I'll yield back, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stoughton. Is there anyone else who'd like to address this particular topic?
Dave, just real quickly.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mr.
you know, I really feel bad that I waited as long as I did. I agree with everything that's been said about Becky. And I also would say that she and I often disagree on matters of policy also. But I would mention that last Thursday, I think after a night shift, she was with code enforcement, you know, observing a cleanup of homeless encampments around the city. So she is, without question, dedicated to the city of Lancaster, and I think that she is absolutely approachable. The one thing that was addressed, or the one issue that came up tonight that I am concerned about, that maybe we have some latitude around, is the operation. There were some allusions to hate groups operating within the confines of our city. And if there is evidence of that, do we have latitude? Is there anything that we can do as city government to mitigate some of that activity? And I guess my question would be to our law director.
Law Director, if you have a response.
You know, as Mr. Baum can probably tell you too, or whatever, from a legal standpoint, I mean, you get into folks, you know, First Amendment rights, you know, and to express those views or whatever. So probably to answer your question from a local level, and the fact that we're a statutory city in the state of Ohio, and not that a charter city has much more leeway on this, but there are many pages of paper and trees that have been torn down, and case law out there with regard to people's right to, you know, express their views, and where that goes. So, you know, off the top of my head, I don't necessarily know. Now, you know, what we can do, and what Lancaster Police Department has been very, I believe, efficient and good at doing, and hats off to Chief Pilar and the police department, of putting measures, you know, in place or whatever to try and control things so that they don't get out of hand. The other thing is with open carry. I mean, that's a state law. So, you know, the place to go for that is the State House. I mean, that's where, you know, those arguments go. We can't do anything on a local level with regard to that. But, you know, what we can do, of course, is,
control the crowds, or to the best of our ability, try and let the crowds express their First Amendment rights, but at the same time, make sure that all the citizens of our community stay safe, that we protect our businesses and business owners and everything around here, and, you know, try to let everybody express themselves or whatever, but containment and make sure everybody stays safe.
Using semi-automatic weapons to intimidate citizens is not okay. And, you know, and it sounds like there's broad consensus around that particular issue. And I don't know that we can do anything about that, but I do want to make sure that my voice is heard, and that if there is anything short of going to the General Assembly around providing a safe environment and opportunity for people to voice their opinions in the confines of our city, it seems like we should do that. Again, I don't know that there is, but that is that's a very serious concern, and we do need to figure out how to move in the direction of making sure that people feel safe to voice their opinions in our city.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Thank you, Mr. Allam. Is there anyone else who would like to address this topic before we move on? Well, let me just echo some of the comments briefly and say thank you to each of you for being here and making your comments tonight. It's my role as the president of council to enforce the rules of council. I never intend or want to cut someone off mid-sentence, and unfortunately we have to keep it at 5 minutes as close as we can so that it is as fair as possible. And let me just say that I time not only each of you, and that happens regardless of who is up or what they're talking about, but each member of council as well, because the rules of council state that a council member has 5 minutes to address a topic once they gain the floor. And each member of council, even the interaction between Mr. Hall and Mr. Allam, clocked under that 5 minutes. Otherwise, they would have been interrupted as well. So I want you to know that it's fair, and it's my goal and really my charge to be as impartial as I can regarding this. So thank you once again for being here. And at this point, we'll sort of move past this particular time of our meeting and move on throughout the agenda.
President, well, I'd like to make a motion that we return to regular business, but only after we take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, we have a motion for a 5-minute recess and seconds around the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are in recess for 5 minutes.
That was a loaded motion right there.
She must have to pee.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
Swing into the Carriage Company and check out our sweet deals.
If you're looking for the best selection of clean, quality used vehicles, look no further than the Carriage Company. You'll feel secure with your purchase, knowing all vehicles undergo an extensive safety and service check prior to the sale. And all vehicles can be viewed online at carriagecompany.com. The Carriage Company, located at 1031 North Memorial Drive in Lancaster.
So wait! The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
He got way red.
Back into the regular order.
President, who would like to make a motion that we return to the regular order of business?
We have a motion and a second to return to the regular order of business. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are back into the regular order. Are there reports of standing committees tonight?
Jumped ahead.
Yes, there are two. Finance Committee meeting minutes dated August 24th, 2020, submitted by Mrs. Downhour, and Water Pollution Control Committee meetings discussion notes dated August 12th, 2020, submitted by Mr. James because of no quorum. So,
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of standing committees. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there reports of special committees?
there are none to be presented.
We have no public hearings. We'll move to the reading of resolutions, beginning with the second reading of temporary resolution 93-20.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement Program and to execute contracts as required, offered by Mr. James, second by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
We've actually had discussions on this before, and this becomes the second reading.
Second reading on temporary resolution 93-20, temporary resolution 94-20.
A resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Fairfield County Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor, offered by Mrs. Downer, second by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downhour.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 94-20.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 94-20. Ms. Downhour.
I will save my comments for the council.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Downhour.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 94-20.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 94-20. Ms. Downhour.
Yes, this resolution is, as we have discussed numerous times, the legislation needed to provide and certify the tax levies to the county auditor.
Very good. Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 94-20 passes 9-0. Temporary Resolution 95-20.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance, amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor and the wastewater utility reserve fund 6029, and authorize the issuance of any then and now certificates needed for the purchase of this property, offered by Mr. James, second by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James?
We've also had a lot of discussion about this one for the sake of time. This is the second reading of 3 readings.
Second reading on Temporary Resolution 95-20. We now have first reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with Temporary Resolution 96-20.
A resolution to decrease and increase appropriations in the General Fund 1001 and the .45 Police and Fire Fund 2047 within the Fire Department, offered by Mrs. Downer, second by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downauer?
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 96-20.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of Temporary Resolution 96-20. Discussion, Ms. Downauer?
None at this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Ms. Downauer?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 96-20.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record Temporary Resolution 96-20. Discussion, Ms. Downauer?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This resolution is to transfer money from the general fund and the police and fire fund into the overtime fund. Due to retirements, illnesses, and injuries, we have to cover overtime for the remainder of the year. And 2 retirements positions were not backfilled. So we're gonna take the salary monies from those 2 positions and pay the overtime.
Thank you, Ms. Downauer. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 96-20 passes 9-0. Temporary Resolution 97-20.
A resolution authorizing the law director to negotiate and enter into a contract with the city of Pickerington for prosecution of cases arising from criminal and other offenses that occur in the city of Pickerington within Fairfield County, Ohio, and to accept payment, offered by Mrs. Downauer, second by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Ms. Downauer.
First of 3 readings.
First of 3 readings on Temporary Resolution 97-20. Temporary Resolution 98-20.
A resolution authorizing the law director to negotiate and enter into a contract with the city of Reynoldsburg for prosecution of cases arising from criminal and other offenses that occur in the city of Reynoldsburg within Fairfield County, Ohio, and to accept payment, offered by Mrs. Downauer, second by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downauer.
First of 3 readings.
First of 3 readings on Temporary Resolution 98-20. Temporary Resolution 99-20.
A resolution scheduling Lancaster City Council meetings for 2021, offered by Mr. Hall, second by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, one of 3, please.
First of 3 readings on Temporary Resolution 99-20. Temporary Resolution 102-20.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering contract amendment for additional construction services, offered by Mr. James, second by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
Yes, we discussed this in the Finance Committee meeting. Basically, it's additional money for inspection services that can't be covered right now, and we'll have a better definition of what those additional projects, which will require the additional money, will be better defined next time in our next council meeting. So this is the first of 2 readings.
First 2 readings on Temporary Resolution 102-20. Temporary Resolution 103-20.
A resolution to increase receipts and appropriate from the unencumbered balance, amend the certificate with the county auditor in the LDOT Fund 2008 and the .45 Police and Fire Levy Fund 2047, and to approve any then and now certificates associated with this grant, offered by Mrs. Downer, second by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Ms. Downauer.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 103-20.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of Temporary Resolution 103-20. Ms. Downauer. Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Downauer.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 103-20.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 103-20. Did you get it?
I think so.
I hope so. Ms. Downauer.
Yes, this resolution is so that we can actually accept the funds from the NOPEC reimbursement grant for energy saving upgrades. The total amount is approximately $84,024. And it's actually going to replace the boiler in the police headquarters, so.
Excellent. Further discussion on the motion
Okay.
passed.
Well, I would just like to
Yes.
say, this project's been long overdue.
Yes,
It's
it
great that
has.
we're able to get a grant like this, take care of it. It was on my 5-year list, and it was on Chief Bailey's 5-year list, so congratulations to the administration.
Yes.
Question.
Great. Yes, Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you. So, the electrical aggregation program, we were with First Energy. How many grants did we get from First Energy?
They didn't offer up grants.
Yeah, I don't think there was an opportunity for grants from them.
Okay, so we're effectively getting $11 for every NOPEC person that's in the electrical aggregation program. So there is even a give back on top of energy savings, so that's pretty awesome.
Yes, it is. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yep.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 103-20 passes 9-0. Are there further resolutions to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? Hearing none, then we'll move to the reading of ordinances with the second reading of temporary ordinance 17-20.
An ordinance to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement to purchase approximately 0.982 acres, more or less, of real property identified as parcel number 0535023192 from Faircom Rentals LTD, offered by Mr. James, second by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
We've actually had a lot of discussion about this particular land purchase, but it's adjacent to our public transit department as well as the Lawrence Street facility for the wastewater treatment. And it would be a very good thing for us to have that area in order to expand in a couple of different parts of those two entities. And this will be the second of 3 readings.
Second reading then on temporary ordinance 17-20. Are there any further ordinances to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? Hearing none, is there any action on tabled legislation tonight?
No.
No. If not, we will move to unfinished business. Does anyone have any unfinished business this evening? If not, we'll move to new business. Does anyone have new business this evening? I'll just briefly say thank you to those council members who nominated people at the beginning of our meeting for the awards. That was very nice. And congratulations once again to those award members. I imagine this is something we'll do every once in a while. So if other council members have nominations, you can get those to Linda, and she'll be happy to help coordinate and make all that happen as we continue forward. Other new business this evening? Yes, Ms. Tina.
I'd like to thank my fellow council people in that for talking. I know I'm a pain in the behind because, well, that's what I am. And that's sometimes how you get the work done. So I appreciate it, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Teener. Other new business this evening? If not, we'll ask the clerk read our announcement of scheduled meetings.
Upcoming meetings. It's hard to believe we only have 6 scheduled meetings for the rest of the year, but the next 2 is September 28th. The one following is October 12th. Both meetings are at 6:30 PM here in council chambers. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. Economic Development, September 17th, 7:30 AM at City Hall, 1897 Conference Room. Safety, September 25th, 7:30 AM at the City Hall, 1897 Conference Room. Finance, September 28th, 6 PM here in council chambers. Service, October 2nd, 7:30 AM at City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Code Enforcement and Zoning, October 5th at 8 AM, City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Public Works, October 9th at 7:30 a.m. Transit Conference Room. Finance, October 12th at 6 p.m. Council Chambers here. And finally, the Water Pollution Control, October 14th, 8 a.m. at the Water Pollution Control Conference Room.
Thank you, Clerk Sandy. That is a lot of committee meetings coming up. Let me just encourage each of you as your meetings go forward, and also based on the email that we received from the clerk earlier, to please get your minutes in or get the announcement that a meeting didn't happen to the clerk so that we can close out the end of the year here in a couple of months with all of our meeting minutes being in by the last meeting or as close to it as possible of council for this year. With that, we'll ask if there are any bills.
There are none to be presented.
Is there a need for an executive session? Seeing none, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
And I second
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. Have a great week.
I don't think that's.
That's what I was.